I do get a lot of backlash. I do hear a lot of people saying, okay, this is just another slave narrative, and we've seen a lot of that. But this is not a slave narrative. This is a narrative. This is a love story, romantic narrative between two males that happens to be during the era of slavery.
And this is Chris for Brothaspeak Podcast, where we speak to the innovative, the daring, and the bold for informative topics for the Black LGBT. Now, everyone knows my love of independent films, and sometimes I love also just to kind of change the narrative for the LGBT crowd. And here's the thing. I came across this series called Lake Winfield, directed by Jared Walker, with starring Mr. Lazarus Tate, and also the production art director, Miss Tiffany, to join me in this conversation to discuss their series that's going to be on Bond TV. And we all know Bond TV for most of the LGBT African-American content. Getting an understanding of what they're trying to create, what they're doing, and the purpose behind it. So I was joining the conversation on that, and I hope you enjoy it. Lake Winfield is a romance adventure drama following the story of two young boys in 1860 Southern U.S. as they escape from the culture that is determined to kill them instead of allow them to love one another. Of course, coupled with slave rebellions and Native American uprising, this tale reveals the history may not be as we remember it. Now, for you to actually take your directorial debut for this particular setting, what was the whole idea? What made you attract to this particular story?
Yeah, so the idea came about because I knew that I wanted to create. I knew that my first. So I'm from music video. I'm from the commercial world, and I knew that I needed to create a narrative. That was the first step. The second step was that I needed to create something that wasn't going to bore me to death, and that was different, that I'd never seen. That was the second, and then the third was something that I would watch myself.
Gotcha.
And so that was like the biggest thing for me. And what actually happened was it didn't actually turn into an LGBT piece of work until Anthony got involved, Anthony Bond from Bond TV. And that's when I said, okay, Anthony wants to have a new show. Like we were just talking about getting a new show up, and I was like, okay, I have this show idea, but it's not LGBT focused, but it can certainly be made into something that's LGBT focused.
Okay.
And that's when I changed it up so that it involved two boys.
Okay.
But that's still a lot far off from where it is now. And now the reason why it is what it is now is because I wanted to show, like, the biggest thing for me was like the interracial aspect of it.
Right.
It was the fact that I wanted to show the how this taboo is so prominent still in our culture today, and how it's coming from both sides of the aisle. Like, it's not just something from white people.
Yeah.
It like there are a lot of black people, even black LGBT people, who are just for some reason very much against the idea of interracial relationships. Like, right. I've seen it in the comment section of Bond TV's videos. I've seen it from friends or from people who not from friends but just acquaintances. And I think that I wanted to explore this interracial aspect in like the most dangerous environment that it could be in, which would be 1800s, because that's when you could be killed for being in an interracial relationship. Like, it wasn't just like you looked down upon or your parents kick you out of the house or something. It was like you can get hung from being in an interracial relationship. So, I think that was how I looked at, like, and I think what I want to, like, I don't want to make it so that it's for shock value. I want to make it so that it's a way to explore it while connecting it to today's culture, but also bringing people through on this on this adventure that they may not be necessarily I just feel like there's a lot of LGBT content that's set in modern day. Like
Okay.
there isn't enough that like sometimes like I remember seeing this one post on the Facebook where someone mentioned like I just want to see I just want to see a nigga in space like fighting dragons and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like how come we don't see our people in space or in the past or like just in these weird spaces and weird environments? Like we always just it's a very like boring. Like we don't have that. We don't have that luxury yet. And now I think now it's coming out more so with the likes of like, you know, Black Panther obviously
Right.
and Get Out and all that stuff. I think it's getting much better, but I think that the past was always like people shied away from that because less than 100 years ago it wasn't a fun time to be black. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And so going in the past for black people was never a fun, adventurous time. There was no way to like, you know, there's another meme going around where like, you know, there's these two guys that just invented time travel, and one of them was black, and they were like, let's go back in time, and the black guy's like, you just go or something like that. Like, you know, like you can't. Like back in the day, like that, it wasn't fun to be black. So I think I wanted to explore it in the time where it wasn't fun to be black, but we also have to remember that we were humans too. Like we felt things, we lived through things, we loved, we cared, we lost, we had all these emotions because we were also human. And I think it's important to show that because I do get a lot of backlash. I do hear a lot of people saying, okay, this is just another slave narrative, and we've seen a lot of that. But this is not a slave narrative. This is a narrative. This is a love story, romantic narrative between two males that happens to be during the era of slavery. Like that's how I put the show.
You know, because you're battling a lot here. You're taking on a lot in terms of you're dealing with interracial. And you're dealing with a particular time period where not just being gay, but also interracial. You're dealing with, you know, people having a certain concept or idea of a film being in slavery. So it's a lot to really take on. Was that something that gave you a little fear in taking this project on?
My only fear is like not having the budget to get every shot that I want. Like that's my only fear, to be honest. Like I don't care about how people perceive the show because the show is just going to be what it is. Like we all love the show, how it's set up right now. We're all behind it, like everyone involved. So we're all going to make it the best way we can. But like when it comes to how people perceive how we dealt with certain aspects of it, like this is like, it's a part of art. It's a part of being artistic. Like if you're not getting pushback or criticism, then you're obviously doing something very wrong.
Right. I do agree with that. Now, definitely for this to be a romance, you know, to give these characters the type of light to be in, one, to be a slave, and the two, to be the slave owner's son, to actually fall in love, which, by the way, is actually a true reflection of history itself, because we've seen that story play out a lot of times in real life. And so to see that between two guys is something that, to me, I thought, you know what, is worthy to actually give a little more attention to this. Now, for you to make the connection with Bond TV, now, Bond is one of those that, you know, are just like Slate TV or just like Signal 21, 23, you know, I forgot, not Signal, I wouldn't say Signal 21, I'm sorry. But just like those type of networks that are mainly focused on Black LGBT content, what made you want to go strictly in the deal with a network? Was it because they already had already an audience made for you, or what was the reason?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, I actually worked with Anthony Bond from Bond TV on his first show back in the day, some years back. I was a part of the Cheetah and August team, and I helped him out on it as a friend, and it like we spoke about how he wanted new content, and he expressed interest and working alongside us. So the reason why I teamed up with him was because we needed the funding to actually get a show going, and B, because I've seen him in the past put a show together and market it and find an audience for it. And so I trusted that he could do it again for Lake Winfield, which I think was a radically different show from what he's used from everything else that's on his platform. Just because of it's a period piece, and
Right.
it's an interracial thing, and it's just a very different show. And I think that I just felt like, since we already had that relationship, and that I've witnessed him creating a show firsthand, I just felt like it was a good move to get the show going.
All right. Now that we have the character that's playing the young slave who's actually going to be having this interracial relationship. His name is Shep. Is that correct, Lazarus?
Yes.
Okay. So and you're playing Shep. First off, can you tell me a little bit about his character?
So Shep is he's like a 16-year-old boy, and he's very innocent. Like, he was raised as a house slave, so he never really had to attend too much in the field. But he's finally of age to where he is going to have to start being a man and kind of learn to tough it out. He kind of, even though being a slave, he got a little bit of favoritism just because even though he was a slave, Tiller's dad could see that him and Shep kind of had a more friendlier relationship than most other slaves. So as he just, worked inside the house, he kind of never really had too much of the hardship or the beatings that other slaves had to face. And so it gets to a point where, he's above age, and it's time for him to grow up and really, take on more responsible duties, which includes, being in the fields, picking cotton, and also being at risk for being, beaten. And the character himself is very innocent. He's very comedic. He likes to, he marches to the beat of his own drum, and he kind of tries to see the positive out of every situation. So like, he kind of just stays uplifted and kind of just thinks of, well, you know what, like I'm sure we can get out of this. I'm sure we can figure this out. He's always trying to think of the solution to the problem versus dwelling on something too deep. And I think that Shep overall is a character who you get to see his growth throughout the show, because you can see his innocence from the start all the way to where he matures at each moment as well. And I think that's just something that the audience would love to just watch and view, because of the fact that you're really growing along with this character, and you're seeing him really turn into this great man, and how he got to that point, and how he's strong at that, like at the current present, like at each stage, you just see how strong he gets.
Now when you think about it, the movie itself, it may be in a period where a lot of people think of slavery, but almost a romance kind of softens it up a little bit. In terms of you actually playing this part, what did you have to do to prepare? Because you sound pretty young. You sound pretty young. So what exactly did you have to do to really prepare for this part?
Well, actually, what I did was I just pretty much watched a few movies, and I also practiced, my Southern accent just to make sure it seemed authentic. But actually, when I first saw the role on LA Casting, I was attached to it. Like, I just read the little bio synopsis, and I wanted to audition for this role so bad. I kept thinking about it. Because it was up there for at least 3 weeks before my audition was, and I remember I I memorized it. I kept practicing the accent every day until it was memorized. And I came into that room just ready because I just felt like I've never read a synopsis of a story as far as like, it takes place in the 1800s and two boys approaching love. It's never been done before. It's absolutely something that I think that this new age, it's part of the new age of television. I think that this show has the ability to really keep the audience captivated by each and every episode, keeping them rooting for each and every character, but also enough content and drama to really keep everyone clinging on to what's going to happen next. And I felt that way since the moment I even auditioned for the show. I felt that my character has also such a great arc. There's so much room for my character to grow. There's so much room for my character to also find himself. I feel like what I love about the show is that the character has moments of identity since he's only 16. And so, at trying to also figure out his own sexuality, but also trying to figure out how he's going to navigate himself throughout this world as a slave, there's just so many stakes that it just keeps every episode interesting. There's like nothing that you can't.
And I hate to interrupt you like this, but I do want to touch on the fact that the character Shep and Tiller, I think what we need to keep in mind too as well, since you mentioned growth, was that these boys don't really have a model to shape their sexuality on. Like back in the 1800s, there weren't just gay people walking around. There wasn't a place that gay people. I mean, there probably was a place that gay people met up, but it definitely wasn't something that was put out, or there was no media to get it out. So I mean, there's really no homosexuality wasn't something that was really explored in that time, and so the biggest hurdle, even after surviving the attack from the Native Americans, the attack or the fact that they have to navigate through this world where a black and a white male can't love, and like all these, and just surviving in the wilderness together. Like besides all of that happening, they have to figure out what is gay love, what is homosexuality, what is this stuff even mean? Like I remember when I came out, like I had no idea gay people existed until I met a gay person. So like I can't even imagine growing up in the 1800s where being gay was such a taboo at the time that you're not gonna meet an open gay person. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not a normal thing to happen. So that I think that's another interesting thing that this show explores with the boys.
Yeah,
and what I love about that. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say that what I truly love about that, too, is that, like, yes, as you get to watch the show and see that they're, growing into men, I think it's going to be so adorable just for any gay person who has had their own coming out story or coming to age story, like, to see how each one of them find themselves too, because it's very cute to almost see them approach their relationship in a childlike way, because they're just so freshly new to this idea of what love could possibly be. And I think that's something that's going to really pull in the audience, because they're going to root for them. And I already know it's going to be like a bomb hashtag, Shep and Till,
You have it in your head already, Shep and Till. Now, being of course, I don't know what romances that you've ever had before in your life, but the interracial aspect, was that something of kind of a little difficult thing to navigate, or was it not necessarily the color aspect? It was more focused on the love?
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know. Is this question directed to me or for Jared?
For you.
Oh, I would say it wasn't more so even the interracial, because even in my personal life, I have been in an interracial relationship. And I've kind of even, it's not the 1800s by any means, but I definitely have been in a relationship where I have seen the difference between, my partner's white family versus my black family, and how I view things and how they view things, and just the dynamic. Now, I feel like at the slave times mixtured with it, it just makes it more. There's more at stake at every motion, at every glance, at every place we walk to, everywhere we're going. I think honestly my biggest challenge was actually just making sure that my Southern accent sounded as genuine as possible, because that's what I was really terrified about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm directing the first episode, and I can't, I don't have a Southern accent, and I can't even hear it. So I have to have Anthony, actually, because he's from the South. He actually stands by, and I'm like, whenever they do a line, I'm like, was there a Southern accent on? Because I can't hear it, and he would confirm for me if it was on or not.
Oh, really?
Southern accent, really important.
Okay. So you had a Southern expert right there on staff. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to this part again, because like I said, this is very interesting because again, I don't think many people have ever really seen something like this, and to make it a series, do you guys? Is that something that you want to make a continuous series about this, keep an ongoing thing, or this is more of a one-time situation where you have something series? Once you've done the first season, that's it.
Chris, let's be real. No, we wanna keep this going as long as we can. I mean, I have so many ideas for how it could go in the future that it's ridiculous. I can't dwell on it. I need to stay in the present season.
Gotcha.
But I will say that if a viewer becomes a fan of the first season, the second season is going to throw them through a loop, because it's going to be this whole radical shift. I'm scared to say something because I'm afraid of putting it out there so soon. But
don't do it.
I know, right? Yeah. No, but it's just these boys have a transformation, and that transformation helps us bring the rest of Lake Winfield. For instance, the show title is Lake Winfield. Lake Winfield is the plantation that these boys grew up in, and then they escape in the first episode. So a lot of people are wondering why is it called Lake Winfield? What's the point of it calling Lake Winfield when these boys leave Lake Winfield on the first episode? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just have to let them know that they're just going to have to stay tuned for future seasons, because there's a reason why Lake Winfield is so important. Maybe the boys come back to Lake Winfield for some reason.
Okay.
So it's a lot to think about, but I do have to say that that there's a bigger picture to this, and there's a reason why I chose a date, a year of 1860. So 1861, we're a year before the Civil War happens. And what I love to do, with this show is kind of warp history in a way where we're playing with all this historical context, but we put our own spin on it. You know what I mean? So we're a year before the Civil War. What was the impetus of the Civil War? How did it exactly get going? Who were the major players? Well, my characters could have been major players of this war. You know what I mean? So I really want to play with the historical aspect of it, because I do have interest in history, and I think that the boys will have an interesting role in coming seasons. Hopefully, if we can get it going.
No, I'm sure you can. I'm definitely sure you can. Especially a lot of people respect Bond TV and are good subscribers of that. Sure. Now, when it came down to the inspiration to have everything in terms of production aspect, to give it that look, to give it that feel, Tiffany, what exactly did you have to do?
So, coming on to Lake Winfield is really interesting because the time period isn't exactly what I look for.
Okay.
It was funny earlier on when you were talking to Jared, he was talking about, how just the misconception about the slave aspect of the show and how that's something that most Black creators do. And I was kind of in that same position where I was like, okay, I don't know that I really am like down for more slave content and stuff, but it was a script that really did flip my thought process on coming on to like Winfield, because it's so different. And the 1860s is a very interesting time here, trying to create worlds these days. Is we're making things that are so extravagant, and there's a real simplicity to the 1860s, but there's also an elegance and a beauty, which is crazy because it's a time period that's filled with so much almost like ugliness and trash and war and stuff, that felt like a real special thing to jump into.
You know, I mean, because when most people think of that period, I think sometimes people, you know, I think of a perfect scenario was the Brad Pitt movie when it came down to 100 Years a Slave. And yeah, and I think a lot of people, you know, they almost feel like, oh, you know, like another slave movie.
Yeah.
But you know, and the thing about it is, I can understand it. I can't understand it because you constantly, you know, you get this impression that nothing of our history has anything to do with in any sort of a joyous situation. It was all very sullen and dark. And that's why when it comes to Black Panther, to take you completely outside, it was just like, we're going to make this the third largest film in the world.
It was a breath of fresh air, Black Panther, because it took us out of that narrative. I totally understand that, but I think that that's going to be our biggest, Lake Winfield's biggest thing to tackle, obstacle, is that we have to convince people that this show is not a typical slave narrative. Like I said before, like it just happens to play in 1860, but we are completely taking this somewhere where it's going to feel more like an adventure and less like we're stuck. Okay, and you know, I have to bring it up because it's probably going to come up. Underground was another show that really touched on slavery, and I think that it's a shame that they have to cancel the show so soon, because season 2 was actually getting to the point where it was getting less of that slavery stuff and more of the rebellious side of things, which is cool. Which, like, I love the Harriet Tubman that they were giving us. It was great. But I just think that their mistake was the first season was so the typical narrative that it turned people off.
Right.
But what I intend to do is get us out there straight out the gate. Like, they escaped the plantation, episode 1. So we're out of the plantation. We're now adventuring across, and we're going to have to face all of these things. And I think another important aspect to it that I think is really cool, like I think people need to get excited about this, is that we're bringing a Native American narrative to this to the plate as well. Like we're bringing something that literally it has no basis of representation in the industry whatsoever. Like we're bringing to light some interesting Native American characters that I think people are really going to love. And
Jared,
yeah.
If I can say that was a big part of production design that I think got us very excited. Was again an aspect like that with the Native American aspect, is it gives us a chance in the art world to sort of play and mix and match a bunch of cultures and artifacts and colors and color palettes and designs that we don't normally meet, or at least I haven't to see meet in TV or film so far. And I think that's what was so fun, is because you're breaking it into this sort of like rebellious phase and stuff. We get a chance to play with a lot of weaponry and fastening and creating some beautifully artistic pieces that our characters, you know, sort of live with and are so attached with. And I think it's like, it was really appealing to me to sort of jump on a project in which I got to discover a culture that wasn't my own. And I think that's the things that are so great about Lake Winfield is we're really like introducing a lot of narratives and a lot of perspectives that I don't think people in either of our communities, whether it's Black community, whether it's the LGBT community, have always particularly seen. We're introducing these subjects that aren't quite taboo, but they're still quite taboo in 2018, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to play with those.
Well, on top of that, I mean, many people don't know or choose not to research that Native Americans and escaped slaves sometimes, in some cases, worked together.
Yeah, they did.
There are a lot of historical instances where, first of all, there are a lot of historical instances of rebellions that people don't know about.
Yes.
A lot. Like people say like, oh, why didn't the slaves rebel? There were a lot of rebellions, and Native Americans played a huge part of that, and so I wanted to show some respect for that by including them in the show, and I'm going to bring up this other show one more time just because I want their audience, since they're counted anyway. But we got the amazing Luis Reyes he's the wardrobe stylist. He actually worked on Underground, and he moved to LA after the show canceled. And we were lucky enough to have him on board, and so the amazing wardrobe design was by him, and our characters look so amazing because of that. And he worked on one specific character named Onawa, that is a Native American Two-Spirit, which is basically our, if you translate that into our culture, that would be a transgender character. And so, like, we have to think about the fact that their culture, not only was it ransacked by colonialism, but their culture was completely obliterated to the point where they weren't allowed to, like, even express their sexuality like they were used to. Like, it ties it back into sexuality, which is an important part of the show. So, there's just a lot of different avenues, like you said, Chris. Like, there's just a lot of different things that we're taking on. And we're doing our best to make that happen.
Now, I'm thinking to myself as an actor, and then again, I don't know all the time when it comes to the mind of an actor. When I look at, Mr. Lazarus, taking on this part at such a young, first I'll say at such a young age, how old really are you?
Oh no, let me cover my ears.
I mean, I trust me, in the LGBT community, that is like the faux pas question. But it's taboo.
Should we be asking this? Hold on. I think we should keep this a mystery. Why should we let them know?
You know what? Okay, keep it a mystery. But I'm thinking to myself, you look pretty young. You look very, very young here. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if a guy's coming out, and because again, I don't know whether or not it's a concern, and to start your career off in such a role. Because many years, for many actors, it is. Is that something that ever came across your mind?
Absolutely, actually. I remember when I was reading the role, I was like, I definitely don't want to just fall into a stereotype of, I can only audition for gay roles because people can only see me as a gay person. But I actually was on set probably I was working as a background actor, and I was talking to John Sally, and he literally just said something that literally I thought it was just wild how I ended up get booking this role after he said this. But it was like right after my audition had happened for this show, and I was waiting to hear back. But I was working on set as a background actor, and John Sally was like, he was just talking to me, and I was just like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm pursuing acting and blah, 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 blah. And then he said something. He was like, and I don't even remember the conversation that led him to say this, but he was just like, I remember I was talking to Will Smith a while back, and he was telling me how his first role was in, he played like a gay lead, and how all of his agents and everyone was telling him, not to do that because that's going to hinder your career. Don't do that. And he felt confident in his acting ability and the range that he's able to play and that what he can put forth. And it was just the fact that he like said that to me, and it was like right after I just auditioned for Lake Winfield. It was kind of like, wow. And then it was full circle when I booked it, because I did have that fear going into it. And then when he said that to me, it just really was like, you know what? I know that I'm capable of anything. And even since then, I have been booking other roles where I'm playing, you know, like a middle school kid who is straight and playing like different, like I am able to play very diverse roles regardless of playing a gay lead. And I feel like if anything, this role is what's going to open more doors for me to play more roles, because I am playing a difficult, challenging role.
Right. And
I'm very
right.
grateful for this opportunity.
And you know what? You kind of think about it, you're right. Because when you look at Will Smith in 6 Degrees of Separation, and that film, first I thought, oh my God, you know, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to play a part like that. Oh, his career's going to tank. That's back then. Right. That's back then. And of course, look at Will Smith today, you know. So honestly, it was, it's, you know, to take on fear, to take on that challenge actually pays off big, you know, and that's what I kind of look at this film as. It's a challenge, but it's going to pay off pretty big. Now, of course, again,
absolutely,
you know, now when you to kind of swing back to the Native American character, that I kind of had to pique a little interest on myself and say, wait a minute. Because Native American did have different beliefs, did have different cultures in terms of how they believe Two-Spirit was definitely something that, and if you see some of the old photos back then, and they never viewed it the same way, was that difficult to kind of weave into this whole storyline?
Well, I mean, I love talking about this side of the story because it's just so fascinating to me. But I think that it wasn't difficult because, I mean, it is going to be difficult for me because we don't have a Native American on the show yet to help us keep it on track in that aspect. I would love, if anyone's listening right now and you're Native American and you know the history, I would love to meet up and hopefully get some guidance on how to keep this character from becoming anything but amazing. But yes, I think that colonialism did a lot of things across the world. And one of them was create this idea that homosexuality is a sin. There are a lot of cultures, some Native American, not all Native American cultures, but some included, that there are a lot of transgender and gay people who just live their lives. Some of them were often revered, actually. Like some of them thought that these two-spirit individuals actually had two spirits in them. Like that was the idea. And so the reason it wasn't that I wanted to just make another gay character, it was that I wanted to show that they weren't just coming and taking these indigenous people's land. They were coming and taking their culture. Yes. They were coming and taking so much and so much indoctrination happening, so much, you know, just rape of culture that I don't think we think about too much. Like, you know what I mean? It's chilling. So I really wanted to spread light on that by providing a character that was so dynamic and so you know, so it breaks away from the norm that people will be like, oh, okay, and then they do their own research like you did. You say you took interest in it. Most people don't know that two-spirit is a thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting that we're putting it out there so that viewers, hopefully can do their own research and find out the amazing LGBTQ queer lifestyles that a lot of indigenous people across the world had before Western civilization made its mark on it.
Now, to have this particular series premiere on the #1 Black-owned LGBTQ streaming service, was that in itself a fear? Because after especially after the interview with Lamont Pierre, Basically, did that ever cause any doubt in terms of, is this the audience that we want exclusively to be our premier network on, or was there any other thought process in that?
So Anthony and Bon TV, they have their own way that they're going to push the show out, whether that is through Bon TV or Here TV or whatever network that we end up getting a relationship with the show on. But I do definitely, after the Lamont. First of all, I love him; he's great. After hearing his interview with you. Sure, I think I do need to put a lot of thought into exactly how we're going to push a show. Like maybe the audience that we want isn't ready yet for a show like this. Maybe that's why when we're pushing our Kickstarter, it's not getting enough traction from the people, from the demographic that I thought it would. You know what I mean? Like this is my first narrative show, so I'm learning a lot about how to reach your audience and learning how to even know who your audience truly is, which was why, again, your interview with Lamont was so helpful. So I think that we fully intend to put out the show on LGBT networks, but I am, of course, very open to hearing from different EPs or producers and hearing like what their ideas are into how we can get the show on that'll something where it's more of a mass audience. Just to get it out there, and maybe that'll be a better way than going straight for the demographic that we thought that we knew was going to love it.
Miss Waite was on The View, and I posted that not that long ago in regards to how she felt that the numbers don't add up in terms of Black LGBT and the representation that is really given to the wider audience. And what she was saying that, she made a little joke basically saying that only her, Wanda, Rue, Titus, and is that something that as a creator yourself that you think is important to show that you are Black LGBT creator content and being the one that's also kind of changing things, changing the narrative of what we currently see right now in film?
So you're asking me if I'm comfortable with saying that I'm a Black LGBT artist creating Black LGBT film?
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's a really good question. So I think that I certainly think that right now it is a great time to be a Black artist. Actually, not even LGBT, just a Black artist.
Right.
Right now, there's this kind of renaissance led by the big boys and girls up there who are doing their thing. And I think that it is helpful for us down here who are trying to really make something happen. But I think I'd rather I'm definitely going to put it out there and say that I'm a Black artist. But I first want people to look at me and our work as art.
Gotcha.
Not just maybe that came out wrong. I don't it is Black art for sure, but it is just art. You know what I mean? I think that I have no problem with.
Well, here's the thing. I think that it's perfectly okay for most people to concentrate on the art first. I get a lot of people who are even musicians who say they don't want to. Yeah. I think if you ever listened to Erica B, and that was one of the other episodes I did right after Lamont, and basically, I asked her the same question. And you know what? She says she leaves it up to the people what category that you want to put me in. but definitely she wants to focus strictly on the art, her music. And, and it does make sense because I think when people actually kind of put you in that little pigeonhole, don't get me wrong. She has said, she made a great living with it. Rue has made a great living with it. Titus has made a great living with it. But at the same time, but that's the lane that they're also doing well in as well. And they want to keep it in that lane. Now, for a person who says, I want to go beyond that lane later in my life, I can see how that could be a little bit of a concern to kind of just say, hey, I'm LGBTQ, and I can see it. I can see it because a lot of people, a lot of people put you in that frame, and I'm pretty sure you're going to come across it later, where a lot of people say, you know what, some of your films are great, but we need some more white characters or more white heroes to be part of that, to bring in that white dollars and increase your budget. I'm sure you're going to come across that, and LGBT will probably be that too.
Right. Well, here's the deal. Like, I put black characters and black stories first for sure.
Gotcha.
In that aspect, like, I love seeing black characters and black stories out there. But I guess I was just apprehensive about the labels being like either or. Like, it's not black art versus art. It's just art. All of it is just art.
Right.
So like for instance, I have a short film that I'm putting together. It's a sci-fi. The character is black.
Nice.
And it's not LGBT.
Okay. Awesome.
But that's a different thing. But it's still from me. I'm still creating it. I do think it's important to have a black character for sure. Like, that's not something that I plan on changing anytime soon. But like, I guess it depends. So story is first. So like the reason why like Winfield works as an LGBT narrative is that it's so interesting to me, and the reason why this new short he's not gay is because it's so interesting to me that he's not. Like, it is what it is. I don't think that I wouldn't like to be put in a box, but like after listening to the Lamont interview, I can see how that might happen. So
yeah, but I'm glad you're being honest about that too, because it is a challenge. Because a lot of people, if you listen to a lot of podcasts, they also mention, I believe, also Samson McCormick. Even as a stand-up black LGBT man, stand-up comedian, he himself said, I don't know, because that road only made it harder for him. So, I can understand sometimes the thought process of going out there, because the road itself is a tough industry, tough road. How much more you want to make it for yourself? So, I can completely understand that in itself. So now, and it's kind of funny because Tiffany, with you on here now, on the production aspect, I'm not sure exactly how it is perceived, for you to do a film like this. Do you get the same respect as you do with other films in terms of doing bringing that art, that true, authentic, genuine aspect to a film? Is that also part of the judgment on the back end of things?
It's definitely strange because from my side of the conversation, I wouldn't be affected, I don't think, as much as in the ways that like Jared and even Lazarus maybe have to deal with. However, there is still a weird stigma on doing projects like this.
Really?
Because I have jumped onto a project that is very heavy in an LGBT theme, it suddenly puts an interesting spotlight on my own life. Which I find is very interesting because now it seems that people maybe are asking more questions about me just because I'm so comfortable working in this type of environment, which I find really interesting because
that is,
to me it doesn't quite make any sense because it feels like it may be just my perspective. It feels like the art of it is art.
Yes.
And it feels like it doesn't really matter what perspective or what theme or what background or culture. It feels like my interest in doing it should be because it's something different, it's something artful, and it's something that I would have to throw myself into to create for. But so it doesn't affect me on like the same, like I doubt that I'll be thought as in like, you know, not, and there's nothing wrong with these labels, but I doubt that I'd be thought as like an LGBT creator or an LGBT artistic thing just because I work on it. But it just feels like once you step your foot into any different type of culture, any different type of people expect that you have to have a strong connection, and I kind of feel that that's a little bit of a dangerous thing because I'm very much in favor of this new thinking that we're trying to develop where it's like you don't always have to be the centerpiece of the story to relate to it. Ava DuVernay released A Wrinkle in Time, and there was a conversation that was going on that was like, will boys want to see it because women are, you know, a girl is the main protagonist? And it's just strange to me after all of these years of girls having to grow up and watching movies with male protagonists, and we never seem to have an issue separating our own femininity from masculinity watching these movies, that it would be so hard to do the reverse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's a really strange thing. I'm definitely not affected career-wise, I don't think, and I do believe that's because my part is behind the scenes and I'm creating a world as opposed to a more interpersonal connection with the characters in that narrative that Jared and Lazarus have to face. But it's definitely a strain. You get a little bit of an eyebrow once you step into something a little bit of different, and it's just barely happened, but I've already noticed little eyebrows will go up just because I said yes to an LGBT content.
Wow. Okay.
And it's very interesting how quickly perceptions shift based off of the smallest choices.
Wow. That is very, wow, I'm glad you answered that. That's very interesting. Very interesting. And now, also, one thing I kind of notice when it comes to, there's a lot of things that comes into making a film really look beautiful, to really give it this layer on top of layer on top of layer. In order to kind of showcase your work, does it need to really be, or kind of showcase, the cinematography must be on point, the lighting must be on point, every other aspect, in order to kind of really to showcase your work as a production value? Does all those other things must truly be also on top of his game to really give your work a little bit more of that?
Yeah, the thing about it is, the fun part with production and art is that, you know, it's very much a collaborative effort, especially coming from my position on this project. I want to create. It's really hard to explain, but it's a very close connection with everything, because in order for our work, and that's coming from like the costume designers, the set dressing, you know, all the art direction. In order for our work to shine, we have to create this environment for the actors to truly live in. So when I'm set dressing, I want people like Laz and, you know, our actor who plays the Colonel, or all of our actors, I want them to step into an environment and feel like they're really in this. I don't want them to feel as if they're on the outside looking in and it's just, you know, make-believe. You know, when we put pieces in front of them, I want them to interact with it. I want them to have a connection to, you know, every little aspect, the dressers, the drawers, the curtains, the, you know, everything. It's so interesting and weird to explain, but I feel like in order for me to shine as a art director, or as far as production designer goes, any of those roles, we kind of have to just do our best and hope that the actors and the creators really interact with the space that we've given them, and that's the only way we'll shine. If Laz shines on screen as Step, and you feel like you're really watching a boy in the 1860s, then I shine as a result.
Gotcha.
Yes, and I just want to step in and say that that's, like, budget-wise and production-wise, that's our biggest hurdle is bringing, because we're shooting in LA, we're shooting in Los Angeles, our biggest hurdle is bringing the viewer into 1860 somewhere in the South. We have to bring them from LA to in that world, and people, the art teams, including the art director Tiffany, I have to give my props to them, because they were able to pull off for the first episode they were able to pull it off. They were able to make it feel like we were in the South, and I think that going forward, finding locations in LA that look like the South is going to be our biggest hurdle.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I'd love to fly us all out there. I'd love to fly us out there to the South, and we can just shoot it there. But that'll be the next season.
Wouldn't the production cost be lower in certain southern areas?
Yeah, if we get the right tax credits and everything, it could certainly bring us to a good place. It's just a matter of getting to that point where we can even talk about that.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to 3 words that everyone would basically want people to walk away with, their parts in here, what are 3 words you want people to walk away with this series?
Oh, geez, 3 words. Okay. 3 words to walk away from this series. Geez. I'd have to say that 3 words would be. I'd have to say that 3 words would be. Love is love.
Huh.
I think that's the biggest takeaway from this show.
Gotcha.
Because I think that no matter how crazy it gets with the adventure, no matter how interesting things get with the historical aspect, I think at the epicenter of it all is this love between Shep and Tiller, and I think that that's really what's going to shine. So love is love. We all need to learn it, live it, and that's my 3 words. Yeah.
Lazarus, what are your 3 words?
I would say, honestly, I would actually like to tag along with Jared's, but I would say love conquers all, because I feel like as long as you have the love in anything you're doing, then everything's going to be all right. And I just feel like the love that's going to keep growing throughout each character and each relationship in the show is what's going to give the show such a longevity, because everyone is going to want to see each character fight to keep that relationship alive, whether it's someone's life at stake or whether it's someone's love interest at stake,
Gotcha. Tiffany, what are your 3 words?
It's strange. I think my 3 words are actually ride or die.
Oh.
I like that. I like that. Okay.
And it's that way because, to be honest, the themes that they're tackling in Winfield, we're tackling, the right to love, we're tackling the right to be free, the right to basically exist and live your life how you want and how it's going to make you happy. But I honestly think that the only way that you can really be happy in this life is you either got to ride for those things or you die trying. So it's you got to ride or die for it.
I like that. All right. Clap it out.
Great job, Tiffany. That was great. I think I'm going to change my 3 words to those 3 words, actually.
All right. Well, one thing's for sure, any additional support that people can give for this particular project, going on Bond, going on to give their actual money and donations, is there any place that people can actually show their love for this project?
Yes, I mean, we have the Instagram, we have Lake Winfield TV, that's on Instagram, and we also have the Twitter, Lake Winfield, at Lake Winfield TV. It shouldn't be too difficult to find us. You can check out any of our cast members' Instagram accounts or Twitter accounts. They're all doing interesting things. Lazarus is also a singer. He has his EP coming out shortly. We're really excited about that.
Okay.
All of our whole team are all doing we're all working on a lot of different things. So we all have our social media output. So you can easily find us. The biggest hub to find us is, of course, Lake Winfield TV Instagram, and that's where you can find the link to our Kickstarter if you'd be interested in backing this project. We're just trying to get $30K to get going and make the first season happen.
All right. Lazarus, so you're a singer. I didn't know that. What type of music you do?
Yeah, I do soulful pop, so like that Adele, Sam Smith, John Legend kind of vibe, but also like our pop music on today's radio.
Okay.
You know what's interesting? I have to point this out, but like, so we had this scene in our sides when we auditioned, folks, and there was a piece that had some singing involved, and a couple of people, we were just like, let's give it a try, let's have them sing, because I do want to have some singing, because music is such a big part of our history as Black people. Music is so ingrained with us.
Yes.
So there's going to be singing in the show. And so I had a couple of people sing, and they sung the song that we wrote, which is all right. I mean, some people murdered it, but when Lazarus walked in, which I fell in love with Lazarus right off the bat, we asked him to sing, and he had his own song prepared, which he sang to us right away, and it blew us all away.
Wow.
And I'm sure that he's a very talented singer. He's we were driving to set for the first day of shooting, and he locked me in the car and sang some of his songs. So like he's very talented. I'm lucky to have him on the show.
All right. Well, I'm definitely going to be making sure. Well, I'm definitely going to make sure all your information is posted for our listeners to be able to kind of track you down and start following you and helping you out with the project as much as possible. And again, I actually enjoyed this interview. It was very honest, but also I love, again, the creativity to push the narrative, change things up, and to give our community a little bit more of a different look. And it helps every single movie, a bit of music, production, every aspect helps in that process. So thank you for coming on the show, guys. I truly appreciate it.
No, thank you, Chris. We appreciate it for sure. Thank you
for having us.
No problem at all. This is Chris from Brothaspeak Podcast signing off. Have a wonderful day, everybody.